Welcome to day 3 of translating word problems, building variables, building linear equations to become a linear system so that we can eventually solve them. Okay, so after one more day of just practicing building variables and equations, we will start solving. Okay. All right, so today's themes are, we talked about money before, but this time we're actually investing money. We're putting it, you can think of it as putting it in the bank. You leave it there, it gets interest on it, and it makes some money for you. Okay, so you end up with more money in the end. And the other type of question that we're doing is we're going to look at mixtures of like snacks and foods and stuff like that. So they'll come out with different prices, and then you have to kind of make an equation that represents the whole problem. Okay, so we're going to look at money investments first. Here's the first one. The investment club invests part of $20,000 at 14% per annum and 12% per annum. The rest at 12% per annum. If the annual income from these investments is $2,600, how much was invested at each rate? So again, if you're not comfortable with what investments are and so forth, this is a little bit of an overwhelming question. So I'm just going to go over kind of just a general description of how it works. So if you've already taken business classes, I think you'll probably understand it, but just in case. Okay, so here's the scenario. So you have some money. So in this case here, we have like 20,000 from that first example. So you have $20,000. So you learn when you're trying to invest. So the word invest. Okay, so that just means you're going to put your money in a bank and leave it there, and the bank will pay you for leaving it there. Okay, so you're making an investment. So because you leave it there, and then you make some more money, and then you end up with more money than the 20,000 that you started off with. So it's a good thing. It's almost like you're sending these workers out for you to go work, and then they're making all this money for you. You just had to sit there and not do anything. So it's great. All right. So so what you're going to do here is in this example, there's a couple places that you're going to invest the money. So you're going to break the 20 into it could be like 10,000 and 10,000, or it might be 5,000 and 1,500. Or 15,000, and you're gonna put some in one account that's at 14% per annum. So all that means is that's the award for leaving your money in that type of account. Okay, so they're just saying that we'll give you back 14% if you leave it there for the year. Okay, the other type of account, it was 12% per annum. Okay, so if like annum is like year, and so per year. So basically, we're going to leave some money in the 14%. So we can even like just pretend that this is the 14% account. Okay, and then this is the 12% account. So if like for example, if you had $100. Okay, and you left it in if you decided to invest it in the 14% accounts, you're going to put it in here. Then at the end, you end up walking away with, they'll give you an extra $14. So they'll give you 14. So that's the interest that you'll make. Okay, so now you get to walk out of there with 14 plus the 100. So you end up with $114. Okay. So say like you put 100 into this one, okay, and then you left it there for a year, then they're going to give you interest of $12. Okay, so I should put dollar signs here. So if you had $100, you put it into the 14% per annum account. They're saying if you leave it there for a year, they will pay you $14 at the end, and you walk out of there now with $114. So you get your 100 back, but you get on top of it the $14. And then there's this one here where it's 12%, and it's the same thing. You put it to work, you leave it there for a year, and you get the $12. Okay, so then you walk out of there with $112. So you made money. You just left your money there. You didn't have to do anything. You just had to leave it there for a year, and they gave you the extra money now that you can walk out with. So they call this an investment because again, you're sending your money in, it's doing work for you, and yeah, you just had to leave it in the bank. Okay, all right, and now why aren't we just putting all our money in one place? So what you're going to find as you, if you go into business and stuff like that, or start studying some of the business courses, you'll find that some banks or some accounts, the percentage that they will give you back can fluctuate. Okay, so and then there's some that might just stay steady, and like say it might stay steady at 12, but the 14 can fluctuate. Sometimes you can lose money, sometimes you can gain money, and so forth. So, but the ones where it's riskier, you can end up getting more money out of it. Okay, but at the same time, the problem is that you could lose money. The ones that are less risky, you are likely to come out with your $12. Okay, so that's why they call this like to diversify, to like kind of put your money in a lot of places, so that if something does happen to one pile of money, you can like still depend on the other, I guess, account of money. All right, and you'll know that'll be there. So that's why this investment club down here is putting it in a couple different places. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of go over the idea of what an investment is, and like it says here, the annual income that was made. Okay, the annual income from these investments, that's what this part is here. Okay, so annual income. So this is the money that came in for you, okay, income. All right, so you got 14% interest, 12% interest. So in this case here, the club kind of broke up $20,000, put it some in the 14%, some in the 12%, and then after a year, the bank paid out $2,600 just for keeping the $20,000 in these two accounts. Okay, so we're going to look at that scenario and then try to build an equation. Okay, so example 1. So now that you have a kind of somewhat of an idea of what an investment is, now you shouldn't be kind of tripped up by any of these words that are being thrown at you. So we have an investment club, maybe at the school, maybe at a company and so forth. They are going to invest $20,000 at 14% per annum, and the rest at 12% per annum. So there's a couple different little accounts that it's going into, okay? And if the annual income from these investments is $2,600, so again, for leaving the money in these accounts for a year, they are awarding you and giving you $2,600 altogether. Okay, so it's kind of a nice deal. You leave their money there for a bit, and you didn't have to do anything, and it made money. Okay, so if you have the spare change like that, you should do that. Okay, you always start early. They always say too to start early, start investing your money early, so that you can retire earlier. So in the last part of the sentence here, it says how much was invested at each rate. Okay, so we need to figure out how much are we going to dump into those accounts. So we can call one the 14% account. Okay, and we'll call the other one the 12% account. So what is it that we're doing? We're placing money into these accounts, and the problem wants you to find how much was invested in each account. Okay, so we're just gonna again pick some letters that you want to use, and then be careful here. So make sure you pay attention to how you describe these. Okay, so don't just say 14% or 14% account, because what is X representing here? Well, it's the 20,000, right? But we broke it into pieces, into two pieces. We don't know how much we put in the 14% account. We don't know how much we put in the 12. We're trying to figure that out. How much was invested at each rate? Okay, so X will be the amount invested at 14%. Okay, and then Y is the amount invested at 12%. Okay, so if you put things like the amount placed in the 12% account, that would have been fine too, but the main thing is you want to be saying amount. Okay, so since we are looking at the amount of money that we are putting into this 14% or the 12%, we are talking about money. So money comes with $, okay, units. So make sure write your units, okay, if it has some. All right. Okay, so now, so the investment club invested part of the 20,000. So whatever X is, whatever Y is, all together, they should total to 20,000. So we have our first equation. Okay. All right. The next part is, so we have a percentage. So basically, if you were trying to figure out up here, how did I calculate the $14? So what I did with the percents here, you're going to divide them by 100. So you're going to divide your 14 by 100, and then you get the number 0.14. Okay, so you get 14% as a decimal. So what you do is then you multiply it by the hundreds, so the amount that you're investing. Okay, so whatever, we don't know yet what it is that we're investing, but we're going to take the amount we're going to invest and multiply it by 14. Okay, so let's say we don't know what it is, so we're going to go 14 times X, right? And then here, the 12%, same thing, divide by 100, and you get 0.12, okay? So here it was 0.14 times X. And then, so if this is the other amount, okay, so like, let's say we don't know what it was, so this is X and that's Y, then we're gonna multiply it by 0.12Y, like that, okay? So that's what you're doing to figure out how much money are you going to make when you leave your money in there. So now, remember how, like in this example here, we said, let's say we threw in 100. So if I take 100 and multiply by 0.14, I'll get $14. Okay. If I take 100 and multiply by 0.12, I'll get $12. So that's how you calculate how much you made, by taking the percentage and multiplying it by that variable. Okay, so the variable again is how much you invested. So here you are taking some part of the 20,000 and you're going to put it into the 14% account. So this is, I guess, the amount that you used, right? Okay, but this will be the interest, or they call it the income, right? So we'll just call it interest here. I think that's a word you might be familiar with more than annual income. So, oops. So that's what we're going to build in the next column here, okay? All right, so in here, interest. So how do we calculate interest? Well, we're going to take our percentage and we're going to multiply it by how much we decide to actually put into the 14% account. And the 12% one, we're going to take 12, change it to decimal, and multiply by the amount that we decide to invest. All right, so then let's add these up, and you're going to get, so the total income that you made, so like even up here, so the total income that you ended up making was 14 plus 12, right? So then you would say the total income was $26. So in this case here, they were figuring out there's some money that came, they were awarded some money from the 14%, some money from the 12%, and all together it came out to $2,600. Okay, and so that's the other equation. So now, as soon as you have two equations like that, you should be able to go and solve it. Okay, but again, we'll do that later. For now, just write down the equations that you built. Okay, so I have a lot of examples today because this one is a little bit tricky, just because the whole idea of investments and money going into accounts and stuff like that might be new to a lot of you. So just want to get you to practice a few more before we get to the worksheets and the checkpoint. Okay, so that was the first example. So let's try the next one. Okay, so here's the next one. Ian invested $8,000. Part of it went into an 8% account. The rest went into a 10% account, okay, per annum, okay? So if you do end up studying these in more detail, right now per annum is like a basic type of interest that can go on to onto money. There's ones where it'll be like, bi-weekly or semi-annually and stuff like that. Like there'll be other conditions so that it actually goes on more than once a year, and then you can make even more money. So it's kind of nice. So if you're looking into investing, kind of look for and kind of research stuff like that, like compounding periods. Okay, but anyway, I digress. Just so right now we are just looking at simple ones where it's leave it there for a year. This is how much money they'll pay you. Okay, all right. So again, we have a scenario here where we don't know how much is going into each of those. We do know the total, and then after 1 year, his total interest from these investments was $740. Okay, so we use the word annual income up here. Here we're using total interest, so it's the same thing. Okay, all right, so let's go through. Here are the two types of, so like, because it's how much did he invest at each rate. So we're looking at, well, there is an 8% option and a 10% option. Okay. And so we're going to use X and Y to represent those. Okay, so let X, and again, be specific here to get full marks, okay? So what is it that your X is representing? It's not just the 8% account, but it's the money that's going in. So if you don't like saying amount invested, you can say the money being placed into the 8% account. Great, okay? So here, let's just do that. Okay, money placed into 8%. And then I'm going to abbreviate here. Already got a space. Okay, account. All right, and then again, that's amount of money. So I have to have a units here of dollar sign there. Yeah. Okay, and then this one. So the money in the 10% account. Okay, I'm just abbreviating account there to get space. All right, so that now we've set up the variables. Let's build the equation. So again, we know there was a total of $8,000. We just don't know how much we put into each of those accounts. Okay, so really with only this equation here and only this much information, you can put in $1 into this one and then $7,990 into this one. We don't know. There's just too many answers here right now. So we need another condition. So that's why we're going to read the other part, and then it gives us a second equation that will narrow it down to one answer. So it's the total interest. So now remember, this is like the total amount of money. This is going to be the interest, okay? That you're trying to build here. So that's interest, and this is the, I guess, the total amount of money or amount, I guess. All right. So the 8%. So again, remember to divide the percent by 100, okay? So go whatever the percent is and then divide by 100. That's how we get to the decimal form, okay? All right, so we do that, and then we'll get to 0.08, and then we're always going to multiply it by the variable, okay? So if we multiply the decimal times how much money you place into the account, you'll find that you will figure out how much money that the bank will give you, so how much money your money made, okay? And then this one here is 10%, so we're looking at how much the money, Y amount of money will make you when it's in the 10% account. So altogether, we're walking away at the end of the 1 year with $740. All right, so there's your two equations. So again, hopefully it seemed really intimidating at first, but I think that you have gotten to the point where you've seen a couple now, you kind of see the pattern here. And hopefully you know a bit more about investments now. So I know that a lot of you will start working, so you can start thinking about investing and saving up money, and when you get enough, you can start investing it somewhere. Even if you don't have a lot, you can start with a little amount and kind of build on it. So they always just say do it early, okay? All right, so there's that one. Let's go to the next example. All right, so you could probably like almost do this with your eyes closed now, hopefully. But still kind of read through the problem, make sure it is what it's saying. It's not something a little trick or twist to it, okay? All right, so there's this amount of money being invested at 8%. So again, I've had students in the past, they'll use highlighters. They'll highlight important parts so then they know to go back to it. And then if 420 was earned in interest, okay, after 1 year, how much was invested at each rate? Okay, so hopefully you're looking at that and going, oh yeah, that's just like all the other ones there. So we have two different scenarios here. I'm going to call one X, the other one Y, And again, try to think of, I don't know, the simplest way to explain this without writing a whole phrase here so you have space, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so amount in 8% account. Okay, maybe that's kind of the best here, and I'm going to write out a space, so I'm abbreviating account. All right. So the main thing is I have students every year, they'll just write 8%. X is 8%, Y is 11%. And I'm like, no, that's too vague. What about the 11% are you talking about? So you talk about the fact that you're putting money into the 11% account, okay? So just take the time, like, if it's your homework, it's your homework. I'm not going to check that, right? You're just going to check that yourself. But when you go to hand in something, make sure that it's very thorough and it explains what you did, okay? All right, so we know that the total was 4,200, 4,200, okay? And again, we're not writing units on the equations, but we will on the variable statement. And okay, so now we're looking at the interest. So change it to a decimal and multiply by the variable. Change it to a decimal, multiply by the y variable. And grand total here, how much do we walk out of there with? So we leave 4,200 in the bank. And we get to walk out after 1 year with $420 extra. So it's fantastic. Okay. All right. And then this is, again, if you're like, that's great, just keep in mind you have to keep it in there and you can't touch it. You can't withdraw a little bit, some money out and and then again, you have to look around and research for accounts that pay this much, okay? Because generally when you have a savings account, it doesn't pay anywhere near that, okay? All right, so here we go. So here's the first equation. And the second equation. Okay, and if you're getting to the point where you're like, I really want to just actually go and find the answer, you can start analyzing these, and you could actually, go ahead and do them. You've seen questions like this where you have two equations, you have an x and y. Could you graph it? Maybe. If you don't end up with nice points, though, graphing doesn't always work, right? It doesn't give you, because you have to get an exact answer. So then we've used substitution. So you have to make one of the variables equal to y or x, right? And then sub it in. But then here you might look at it and go, well, the x's and y's are all lined up. I'm going to use the elimination method. So you can go ahead and actually solve it if you want. All right. So now that we've looked at those, hopefully you're comfortable with investments. Now we're gonna look at food mixtures. Okay, so now we're moving to food mixes, okay? This is something you might do. You might go, I don't know, to Bulk Barn and grab some gummy bears and then grab some jujubes and maybe you're allowed to have a mixture and stuff like that. Anyway, so we want to look at, so if you're going to take some two different items and buy it, how much is it going to cost and so forth. And then if I have conditions, can you figure out how much of each of the gummy bears, or how many scoops of the gummy bears are massive gummy bears, and how many, what massive jujubes you should buy and so forth, okay? All right, so in this case here we have chocolate covered items, almonds and raisins, okay? They have a cost to them, so the almonds are $30 per kilogram, okay? And the raisins are $10 per kilogram. So from there, when we combine them together, we end up buying 10 kilograms of the snacks, and it costs you $150. Let's start filling out the table here. So we have almonds. Oops. Almonds, there we go. Almonds, and we have some raisins. Okay, so we're looking at the scenario here, and we're noticing that, okay, so we have some costs to it, and the first number we are given is the total mass, and the total cost here. So the very last sentence, though, says how much of each is in the mixture, okay? So we need to figure out how much of each that we're going to put into the mixture. So let's label these X and Y, and let's describe what the X will represent. So again, if you just write X equals almonds, that's going to be too vague. I'm going to take off some marks. So what I want to see is that you're talking about what is it about the almonds? Well, how much of each are you going to put in? So is it like literally, are you counting every almond? Or is it something else that you're doing here? So here, it's a mass, right? So we're trying to like scoop out, like, I don't know if you've ever gone and bought things out of a bulk bin, but yeah, you scoop out and then you put it in the bag, and then when you go to the cash register, they'll actually weigh it for you, and you pay for what mass that you bought. So in this case here, they're not going to go in and count how many gummy bears. They're going to just look at the mass. So, so here we need the mass of the almonds. Okay. And again, this one, check for the units. Yes, mass. In this case here, we're talking about kilograms all the way through this problem. All right, and then Y, the mass of the raisins. Okay, so we're going to build our first equation using the 10 kilograms. So we don't know what mass of almonds and raisins that we are going to buy here, but we know that we ended up buying 10 kilograms altogether. Okay, so I'm not going to write the units. All right, so we have our mass, or our weight. Okay, so then now we need to figure out this cost. Okay, the cost equation. So in this case here, it's saying that. So remember, you're going to buy so many kilograms of almonds and so many kilograms of raisins. So when you do that, if you buy like 1 kilogram of like almonds, right, you pay $30. If you buy 2 kilograms, you pay $60, etc. Okay, so what you're going to be doing here is you're going to be taking the amount that you bought, the mass that you bought, and you're going to multiply by the $30. Okay, so whatever the X is, 2 kilograms, 5 kilograms, you're going to multiply by the $30. All right, and then the same with the raisins. If you buy 1 kilogram of raisins, okay, you're going to pay $10. If you buy 2 kilograms, you pay $20. Okay, so what you're doing here is you're multiplying by $10. Okay, so as soon as we know how many kilograms, we multiply by 10. Okay, so if we could figure out what the X and Y were, in the end, your grand total is that you'll spend is $150. Okay, so we're looking at a lot of food here. All right, so basically this question sets up, okay, we know the mass that you have to buy, and we know how much it's going to cost you, and we know the price for each of them. Okay, so with those conditions, there's going to be one answer that works, and you can use the solving methods that you've been practicing to get to those answers. Okay, but for now, this is as far as you go today. Just build the equations and stop. Okay, all right, and let's try the next one. Okay, on to example 5 here. So what we see here is that we have a bag of candy now, and they have different prices. So I'm just going to call this candy A and candy B. Okay, all right. So candy A is will cost $1.05 per pound. Candy B will cost $1.35 per pound. So it's saying this question is slightly different from the one before. It's just saying that now it's going to be $1.17 a pound for this whole mixture. Okay, all right. And so in the end, we want to still find out how much of each candy is put into this bag to make 30 pounds of mixture. All right, so slightly different question. Still, I'll show you how to get through this new price here. Okay, all right. So we have candy A, and we have candy B. Okay, all right. So again, in the end, it does want you to tell them that how many pounds of each. Okay, so we're going to call it X and Y. so we're going to look at the mass of candy again. If you wrote weight of candy, that's fine too. Mass of candy. But the correct word is supposed to be mass. But anyway, everyone uses weight still, so it's fine. All right, so pound. Okay, and again, you will see pound abbreviated as these letters. Okay, so you can write LB if you want, or if you can want to just write pound, that's fine. So X is the mass of candy A. Okay, Y will be the mass of candy B. Okay, so now that we have the variables x and y defined, we are going to look at the mass here. And so we're noticing in the problem here that 30 pounds was bought. Okay. Okay, so again, so our goal is to try to figure out what mass, how many pounds of A we'll buy, and how many pounds of B we'll buy, but we know for sure that we're going to buy 30 altogether. All right, in the last problem, we made a cost equation, so we'll still do that here. So last time it was saying how much money per kilogram, but we're working in pounds, so we're finding candy A is $1.05 for every pound that they buy, okay? And this one's $1.35 for every pound that you buy. Okay, and then the last problem, though, did tell us how much it cost. So it was $150. So, so what's different about ours right now is that, well, we know how much we bought. We know how much per pound it would cost us, but we don't know the total. But in this case here, we can find that. Okay, so we know the total is, well, we bought 117, we bought 30 pounds, right? But it costs $1.17 a pound. So all you're going to do here to find your grand total here is take your 30 and you multiply it by the $1.17. Okay, just a little to make this problem a little bit trickier. They're just making you find the total before you actually go and start the question. Okay. All right. So now that we have that, so if you calculate that out, you will end up with $35.10. So that's how much you end up spending. Okay. All right, so let's build our equations here. So we have x plus y. So that's the mass that you bought of each of the candy. You're going to end up with 30 pounds. And then when you went to go pay for it, so you paid $1.05 for the first candy, $1.35 per pound for the second candy, and then a grand total of $35.10 to pay for the whole thing. Okay, so now you found the two conditions. Now you should be able to go and solve it, but later. All right, last one. Okay, so hopefully you're not feeling too shaky with these ones here. So again, it's kind of the same idea, mass cost, okay? And like these money amounts are kind of like the tickets that we, from the first day of word problems. All right, so we have peanuts and cashews, okay? So a pound were mixed in, okay, so peanuts and cashews. Okay, so you have $2.25 worth, and for the pound for the peanuts, and then we have $3.25 a pound for the cashews. So this mixture is going to work out to being $2.65 a pound, and we bought 35 pounds worth. Okay, so it's the same one, similar to the one we just did. So hopefully now you can, now that you're doing a second one, you feel a bit more comfortable. Okay, so what is it about the peanuts? We're trying to figure out how many pounds. So let X be the mass, the weight of the peanuts. Peanuts. And what are the units that you're using this time? Pounds. So I'm going to use LB, okay? So you get comfortable with those units. Okay? And when in doubt, just write the whole unit out if you're not, I can't remember what the abbreviation is for pound. All right, y is the mass of the cashews. Okay, LB. And if you add those together, all right, so remember this is the mass that you're finding, and we're going to find the cost in a sec. Okay, so for now, the mass though, we bought 35 pounds, okay? So 35, x plus y is 35. All right, so for the cost, let's figure that out. So for peanuts, well, we have to pay $2.25 for every pound that we buy. So we're going to go 225 times x. And for the cashews, $3.25 for every pound of cashews that we buy. And then our grand total is, again, not given to us directly. So what we're going to do is we know we bought 35 pounds and we know it costs us this much. So we just take our pounds, right, our pounds, and multiply by the price. So maybe I'll write it the same way here this time. So I'll write the price first, and then I'm multiplying by the mass. But we know it, 35 pounds. Okay, and then before you actually present your final equation, multiply, oops, don't add, multiply those values out, and you'll get, you spent a whopping $92.75 on these nuts. Okay, all right, so write them out. Okay, so write out your two equations, write out your variable statement, and write the units with them, and that's all you have to present today for your checkpoint.